guys, Sean T. Phillips with my brand new video with my picks for the best and worst films of 2019. Now, of course, though, I'm sure I ended up forgetting one or two things or a couple different things that I liked. I ended up probably by mistake leaving off, but I was going through the lists online trying to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Like I said, though, I'm sure I did. And the way I broke this down is I did the best movies, movies that are worth watching, which are ones that are still really, really good, as well as the worst movies, and then the best worst movies, which are movies that are so bad they're good, that are like bad movies but that are really, really fun to watch, and I still really did like them. And of course, too, with some of the stuff that I picked for best, there may be a few things on there and some people, really disliked. And the thing is, when I pick, like, my, picks for the best movies, it's kind of like, I'm not picking on some of them for, like, the technical, like, they're the best movies technically, or all the aspects are perfect in the films. Sometimes the ones that I'm picking for best movies are the ones that I feel like I could really go back and rewatch again. Movies that really had things, that were really memorable films all around, that, or just, like, resonated with me, that I feel like I really, really love these movies. The first one here that I have for the best movie of the year is the film that's directed by the Safdie brothers, who of course directed Good Time, which I absolutely loved. That was one of my picks for best movies when that movie released. I believe that was 2017, and that's of course the film that I picked was Uncut Gems, which stars Adam Sandler doing a very, very dramatic role. He still has some degrees to his character of being, kind of the way some of the things that his character does is slightly comedic, sort of, a little bit, but no, it's much, I almost feel like this is the movie that his whole career was leading up to make, was this type of a role, and this type of a movie that was so memorable, and his character is this, diamond dealer who works in the diamond district in New York, and it's like he basically makes all these bets and has all these people coming after him, and it's like things just kind of continuously get worse and worse, and it's absolutely intense, the movie. It's absolutely 100% must watch. The next one I picked was Joker, which of course stars Joaquin Phoenix, who I thought did an amazing job in the film, and I like too that it's its own movie. It has no connection to anything else. It's its own standalone film, and it really has the vibe of like Taxi Driver, which I love Taxi Driver, and it has that kind of feel to the story, the way things are going in it. The next one I picked was the movie starring Shia LaBeouf called The Peanut Butter Falcon, which is one, if you guys have not seen, is an absolute must-watch about this boy who has Down syndrome who really wants to be a wrestler, and he has this VHS tape of this wrestling commercial he's always watching, and he really wants to go and see this wrestler and go to his wrestling school, but because his parents didn't know to take care of him, the only place he can live is an old folks retirement center, and he lives there with Bruce Dern's character, and he's friends with Bruce Dern, and Bruce Dern is kind of like tired of hearing about him talking about this, so he helps him escape one night, and it's basically his journey, trying to get to this wrestling school, and then he comes across Shia LaBeouf's character who has his own set of problems, and they end up going on the journey together, and Dakota Johnson's character, she worked at their old folks home, and she's responsible for getting him back, so she kind of comes after him, but it's just a great movie. It's one of those really, really positive, feel-good movies that, like, every aspect of the film worked. The next one is another film which stars Shia LaBeouf, and it was Honey Boy, and that was a movie that he wrote about his, and some things were changed around, but it was essentially about his relationship with his father, his father who was his manager, why he was acting as a kid growing up, and his father had all sorts of problems with alcohol and substance abuses and all sorts of things, and was kind of controlling the way he treated him, and he was kind of breaking him down the way he was treating him, and all these, and he wasn't really acting like a father, and he was coming to set with all these sort of problems and yelling all the time, and it's a really, really well done piece on his life, and just really well done all around. The next one is a movie which I feel like is really going to go under the radar, which stars Emma Roberts, called Paradise Hills, and it's set in the future, and her character is set to be married to this guy that she really, really doesn't want to marry. She really doesn't like this guy, and she has this other guy that she likes, but she gets sent by the one who wants to marry her to this sort of like a finishing school for girls, where it's kind of like like sort of like a controlling thing to try and kind of make her want to marry this guy, and it's a weird sort of things going on. It has vibes of like Cure for Wellness, and like looks like with the lighting and the everything to like Dario Argento's films, and you know, Awkwafina also stars in the film. It's a really, really interesting movie. It's one of those movies, like I said, I feel like it's really going to go under the radar. It has amazing, like the way it's shot, the look. It has these amazing costumes work in it. Really, really cool movie. The next one, this is a movie that a lot of people really disliked. And I loved it because I thought it was a really interesting story. I've come across people that are like, you know, fanboys like this that can be really weird. I've witnessed it. And I thought that, you know, this was a really interesting portrayal of someone, too, who has, you know, who's on the spectrum, which is basically, this movie is called The Fanatic, which is Fred Durst directed the film and stars, you know, John Travolta and Devon Sawa. And John Travolta's character is this obsessive fan who's obsessed with Devon Sawa's character, who's this action star who's in a bunch of horror movies, and he ends up getting this jacket of his that he wore in one of his movies, and he wants to have him sign it, so he goes to this event where he's signing, and right before it's his turn, he ends up, Devon Sawa's character gets this call and has to go out into the alleyway to talk to his ex-wife, and John Travolta's character comes out there after and says, "Oh, I believe you forgot me," and it becomes this downward spiral of him becoming obsessed with him, and Devon Sawa's character really mistreats him, and it's just an intense movie. The next one I picked was Lords of Chaos, which, you know, I think that might have been made a while ago, but it released this year, and that was about you know, Jack Kilmer's character, and it was kind of all about those group of those people who ended up were burning down churches, and it's kind of about the band that they were in, and it's just this insane movie. It's a really well done character piece. It's another one, like I said, I feel like really, really is going under the radar. And with that one too, there's 2 different edits of the movie. Make sure if you guys pick that one up, you get the one that's the uncut edition. The next one I picked was Robert Rodriguez film, Alita Battle Angel, which I thought was one of the coolest, most interesting science fiction movies in a really long time. I thought like it had vibes of like Blade Runner, and it was about this set in the future, and one character ends up discovering, you know, Alita's like, you know, robot, and he ends up bringing her back to life, and, you know, she doesn't have any of her memories because she was like a robot that was a fighter and everything. It's just she's kind of like forgotten the past, and she kind of sees herself as human. It's a really, really interesting movie. It's one of those ones I really hope that they get to make a sequel to. I really don't know if it will happen, but would definitely love to see it. The next one is the movie Climax, which is directed by Gaspar Noé. I believe that's how you say his name. It stars Sophie Botella, who's in the, you know, the Mummy remake and Atomic Blonde, a bunch of different movies. And this was one of those movies that was all set, you know, about this French dance academy that was putting on this, you know, rehearsing for a show coming up, and it kind of takes place all in one night, and somebody ends up putting something in the punch, and it ends up basically drugging the characters, and it becomes this insane night where it just continuously gets crazier and crazier, goes along. Really, really cool music in that movie. The next one I picked was, you know, Harmony Korine's new film, and this is one that got mixed reviews, but I really liked it, and it stars Matthew McConaughey, and it's Beach Bum, and I don't know, I love Matthew McConaughey's character in that, and he's just basically this guy who has all this money, and he ended up doing something wrong and loses his money, and he's like, it's just kind of him in like Florida, kind of Matthew McConaughey's character, kind of going around, messing around, hanging around with like Snoop Dogg, causing all kinds of like mischief and problems. It's just like I really love Harmony Korine's movies. Like, you know, my favorite though is Gummo, but I really like the stuff that he does, and I thought that it was cool too. You know, and also he directed Spring Breakers, which I really liked. But it was cool seeing him like move into acting with these really big name actors and stuff like that. The next one that I picked here was from the stars Robert Pattinson, called High Life, which some people have kind of compared to Ad Astra a little bit. But, you know, Ad Astra is much more of a serious in tone space film. High Life is like this crazy space program in the future, and it's about a group of these people who are on a spaceship, and they're doing some kind of weird fertility kind of experiments, and there's all these symbolisms and visuals and meanings for things, but it's a really, really cool space film. Next one I picked is a movie that really went on the radar as well, starring Elle Fanning, you know, called Teen Spirit, which I really liked. It was about this singing competition, and Elle Fanning's character, I think she was from Russia, and she really wanted to be a singer, and her family like wasn't supporting her and supporting her dreams, and she ended up leaving and ended up getting into this competition, which was kind of like an American Idol kind of thing. And it's kind of all about what she goes through and how it's like kind of changing her personality, and she's being trained by this guy who was a singer who was really successful once, and he's kind of fallen on hard times, and he's, you know, helping train her to help her, you know, win this thing. And it's a really, really well done movie. It's kind of like the film American Dreams, only American Dreams was like a kind of a parody. This one's more of a serious kind of in tone movie. And then the other one that I picked, there's 20 for the best, was The Last Black Man in San Francisco. It's another one which is an A24 title. High Life is an A24 title as well. There's a number of A24 titles in here as well as Uncut Gems. But the Last Black Man in San Francisco was about a guy who ended up having his family home, and you know, his grandfather owned, and he ended up, the grandfather lost the house, and then he kind of was always going back with his friend to work, kind of basically make sure the house was still kept up, you know, help paint the front. And the people who live there now are like, why do you keep coming by? Why are you coming around all the time? But one day, though, he goes back there and comes to find out that the people who live there had moved away. So he ends up going and figuring out how to get inside, and he squats inside the house, and it's kind of him in there, and it's a really, really interesting character piece. A lot of character actors pop in there, up in the film, but really, really great acting. Love that one. The next one here I picked was the movie Midsommar, which is from the director who did Hereditary, and I really loved Midsommar because it was had the vibe of the original Wicker Man, and I really love those kind of movies about weird cults of people and weird groups of people. And it's about a group of these friends who are going to their one friend who was from Sweden, and they went to there. We're going with him for the holidays. I think it was for the holidays too. They have like a show they put on, like these festive events and stuff, and they were going there for that, and they come to find out that it's not a good thing that they went there. But really, really cool movie. The next one I picked was another A24 title, one that stars Awkwafina. It's called The Farewell, which was about Awkwafina's character's grandmother. They find out that she has terminal cancer, but they don't want to tell her because in their culture they don't believe in like telling older people if they're dying from something like that. So the family doesn't want to tell the grandmother. They don't want her to know at all, but they want to, you know, all see the grandmother because the way it sounds as if she's doesn't have much time left at all. So they end up going to China to see the grandmother, and Awkwafina's character, they really don't want her to go because they're afraid that since she talks on the phone every day and is the closest to her, that she might spill the beans and say, and like won't be able to control her emotions. It's just a really, really well done movie. The next one is a movie which it's hard to explain, but I really love, called No Alternative, and it was about like this kind of like just like this family drama, and about this one girl who really wanted to be a rapper, and she had these like really crazy rap songs that she was doing and performing, and then just sort of all these family dramatic problems going on with what happened to the one brother, and all sorts of things. But it was a really, really well done movie that I feel like really, really went under the radar. And of course, the next one I picked was Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I think is probably my favorite Quentin Tarantino film, next to you know, Pulp Fiction. And I also really love, you know, stuff that he wrote, like True Romance and Natural Born Killers. I think Natural Born Killers, anything that he had anything to do with, is probably one of my most watched movies. I always thought that was a really interesting movie, the way it was shot and everything. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was just a really perfect film, which it kind of like the biggest aspect that I thought was so amazing was the effort and that he went into making the movie as authentic as he could for the time period of 1969, where it was like the stuff that was playing on the music was, you know, on the radio was the actual music that was playing then. The stuff that was, you know, he went and recreated Hollywood Boulevard and everything, and you know, instead of doing it digitally, he actually put the signs back up and did the, you know, advertisements on, you know, on the billboards and all that kind of stuff. It was just amazing details. But it was like one of those movies, if you guys have not seen it, 100% must watch. The other one I picked was, I really liked this movie, was Ready or Not, about this girl who ends up getting married to this gets married to this guy who comes from this really, really rich family, and they have these weird traditions that they do where you have to open up this box and pull out a card, and the card tells you a game you have to play, and it could be like checkers, Parcheesi, just any kind of generic game, but the card you don't want to pull is the card for hide and seek. And of course, if she picks the hide and seek card, and the hide and seek card means the whole family comes after her and tries to kill her. And if she survives, though, she's okay, but she has to try and survive before the morning. And it's just an intense movie. The other one I picked is one I recently just saw, which is a movie directed by and starring Alex Wolff, and it's also stars Mike Epps, and it's The Cat in the Moon, which is a great movie about Alex Wolff's character coming to New York to stay with Mike Epps, who's a friend of the family, because the mother is in like a psychotic hospital, mental hospital, and has to kind of be away for a while. So he has to stay there with him for about a month or so. It's basically just about him going to school, out there for the month, and then meeting these friends there, and kind of just all the things he goes through. But it was a really, really well put together movie. And the last one I picked for best movies was a movie that I didn't know going into it how I was going to feel about it, because from the trailers I wasn't sure. I absolutely loved the original film, but it was Dr. Sleep, which I was really, really impressed with, and like really got into it. I can't wait though, because when it comes to Blu-ray, it's going to have an extended cut, which is has I believe more too, of like the hotel and everything, and from what I've heard. So I really, really cannot wait to see that. But that's one, if you guys have not seen that too. Like I said, it was an extended 30-minute longer version, but it's one, if you guys have not seen that, would definitely recommend you guys check that one out. And now we're going to go through my picks for the movies that are worth watching. Now these ones are really, really good as well, just not as strong as the absolute best picks, but still ones I really, really liked. The first one, I'm going to go through these ones much quicker, was Booksmart, which was directed by Olivia Wilde, which I thought was a really, really fun movie. Nightmare Cinema, which was a great anthology horror movie, because there's so many anthology horror movies that come out. Some of them are kind of forgettable, and some of them, the stories aren't that great. And this one, though, I felt like every story in there, I think there was maybe one that I didn't love, but for the most part, every story was really cool. It had really cool, like, atmosphere to the stories, really well put together. The other one that I picked was Rob Zombie's 3 from Hell, which was, I almost want to be picked for best, but I didn't love every aspect of it. I still always really love, even though he said recently how he thinks that it's kind of has some flaws to it, but I still always love House of a Thousand Corpses. Like, that was the first, I remember seeing that one in theaters. I remember having the Fangoria when the movie was supposed to come out like 2 years before, and when it was coming out through Universal, and always really loved that movie. Then I picked Shazam, which I feel like out of the superhero movies recently, that's one of the ones you don't hear about that one brought up as much as some of the other ones, and I really like that one. Next one I picked was the film Crawl, which was almost on my top list, because I really liked, when it comes to like those kind of killer crocodile movies and stuff like that, some of them I really, really dislike. This one I thought was really cool. I thought it was a really, really tense movie, and I thought the CGI for the most part really worked, because it really had to, if it looked really bad, it would really not play well. The next one I picked was the movie The Fair, which I like these kind of movies where it was a guy who was this cab driver, and he kept on, every time he was like driving in the middle of nowhere to pick up this girl, and then he'd pick her up and he'd go through this like weird storm, and then like everything would, like, the girl would vanish, and he'd go and reset the meter, because he thought, oh, I guess something happened, I don't know, and then the whole day would start all over again. It was kind of like a Groundhog Day kind of film. The other one I picked was the film Adopt a Highway, which I recently saw, starring Ethan Hawke, about this man who got out of prison after like 20-some years, and he ends up, when he gets his job out of prison, he ends up discovering this baby in the garbage out back, and he ends up taking care of this baby, and it kind of starts this spiral of because he should have taken this baby to the cops, and it's a really, really interesting, well put together, very, very sad film. Then I put this movie called Level 16, which is one of those movies I really got into, about this like girls' school, and they were kind of like weird sorts of things going on there, and you would go up different levels in the school, like, oh yeah, once you graduate this one, you go to this level, and it was just these weird sorts of things going on at this school, but a really cool movie. Then I picked movie that I thought was a really well done movie starring Emilia Clarke called Last Christmas, and Paul Feig directed the movie, who directed, of course, Bridesmaids and Spy, and I thought it was a great Christmas movie. It had a really interesting surprises in the movie too that I was not expecting, although don't read into the movie or you'll find out some of those things, so kind of like don't read too much into the movie. Another one I picked was a movie called Satanic Panic, which was a really fun movie about this girl who's first night on the job is this pizza delivery girl, and she ends up delivering this pizza to this mansion, and the guy doesn't give her a tip, so she goes inside to complain because she knows they have a lot of money, and she drove real far out to get to this place. She goes in there and realizes that they're having a sacrifice going on. And then they find out the person they were going to sacrifice is not a virgin, so they end up coming after her. And it's her kind of running through the night. And it's a really, really fun movie. The other one I picked was a movie called I'll Take Your Dead. And it's about these this father and daughter. And the father works at they work at this like funeral home. And basically criminals and stuff like that, or people that want to get rid of bodies, bring the bodies to him and he makes them disappear. And the daughter, though, she's like sees all these weird things. It's a really, really cool movie. And they end up discovering, though, that the one body that's brought in is still alive, and they have to kind of decide what to do. The other one I picked was 5 Feet Apart, which I really thought was a really good, very, very sad film. Another one that was starred Adam Devine, which I thought was a really fun movie, and it was really goofy, but it was called Jexy, and it was like he puts this app on his phone which kind of starts trying to like tell him what to do with his life and kind of like controlling him, and if he doesn't do what it says, the app goes and causes all kind of problems in his life. The other one I picked was Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which I really liked. I know it's getting mixed reviews, but I really thought it was a really, really fun movie. I really didn't have any problems with it or anything like that. The other one I picked was one of the animated movies that I really liked this year called Abominable, which I thought was a really impressive animated movie, which is kind of another one that I feel like sort of wasn't talked about as much as some of the other ones. And then I picked Glass, which was almost on the top movies, but I still really liked it. I didn't like the outcome of one character in the movie, and I'm sure a lot of people didn't. I didn't know why that, the outcome of that little thing did that. You know what I mean? If you guys saw the movie, I don't want to ruin it, but I didn't like that aspect of it. Other one I picked was Rambo Last Blood, which I really liked because it was kind of Rambo mixed with like an R-rated Home Alone, because Rambo sets these crazy, insane traps. And it's just like the last 30 minutes of the movie is totally insane. Other one I picked was Corporate Animals, which is from the director who did both the Creep films, and I believe he's going to be doing Creep 3 at some point, with the movies that star Mark Duplass, and it's basically about people going on this corporate get-together thing where they go on like an exercise, like climbing this mountain and exploring these caves, and they end up getting themselves barricaded in this cave, and it's just this wacky, ridiculous, dark comedy of what they're going through in this cave. The other one I picked was a movie that did not do great. It was called The Goldfinch, about this boy who ended up finding this his mother, and he was in this explosion at this museum with his mother, and the place explodes, and his mother ends up passing away and dies, and a bunch of people die in there. But he ends up stealing this painting that he saw, this goldfinch painting, and it's kind of this painting, and it's kind of goes through throughout years of his life as he gets older and everything. But it's a really, I thought, well done character piece. The other one I picked was a movie called Freaks, which stars Emile Hirsch and Bruce Dern. It's about like set in the future where people have these kind of abilities and these powers, kind of like superpowers, sort of. And then his daughter has these powers, and she people can bleed from their eyes, and it's hard to explain, but it's a really interesting movie. Other one I picked was Jim Jarmusch's film The Dead Don't Die, which I thought was a really, really fun, goofy zombie film. Then I picked Spider-Man Far From Home because I really love the Spider-Man movies. I feel like those are, out of the superhero movies, like my favorite superhero movies of all time are Batman, and then I'd say Spider-Man. Like, I always really loved the character of Spider-Man. Then I picked Danny Boyle's new film Yesterday about like everyone in the world forgot who the Beatles were except this one guy who's a musician, and he uses that to his advantage because he wasn't a successful musician. He was trying to get like a career going, but he ends up making performing the Beatles songs and becomes this huge star. The other one I picked was the film Brightburn, which I really thought was a cool movie. And now, oh yeah, one last one for worth watching was Fighting with My Family, which, you know, was about the wrestler Paige and about her family and kind of all the things that they went through and everything. I thought was really good. Now, though, we're on to worst. Like the worst movies, ones that I just really, really did not like. The first one was Cats, which, you know, a lot of people said is really bad. It was one of the first movies, too, in a long time where I literally, after 10 minutes, was sitting there going, I do not know if I can sit through this. I feel like I need to leave. I'm thinking, like, can I change this ticket and go to something else? It was like that kind of thing. Everything about it was a mess. The music was not really that great. There were so many screw-ups, which I know they're fixing. Like, when you saw, like, human hands, they didn't fix them. Just the whole look. They should have just done it all with makeup and costumes and stuff. I have no idea why they did it. It's one of those kind of movies where it's like the Fantastic Four reboot. Almost like they're going to, like, reboot Cats again. And, like, forget this other one existed and do it again, but with, like, them in just costumes and makeup. The other one I really disliked was the Charlie's Angels remake, reboot. I really did not care for that one. That was another one near the end of near probably the middle of the movie. I was like, I really am not liking this movie. Nothing about it was interesting. The other, you know, Charlie's Angels movies I thought were really fun films. This one though was like taking itself too seriously and was just not great. Other one I picked was one that from the trailer I thought I was really gonna like, and then I was like, this is not that great. It was a movie called Miss Bala. And, you know, with Gina Rodriguez, like, going to Mexico to see her friend show, and she ends up getting, like, stuck doing these things to try and get her friend back who gets kidnapped. But I just did not love that movie. I need to see the original movie. I heard the original movie that was a lot better. Other one I really didn't care for was What Men Want, which was kind of like a What Women Want, but, like, done as, you know, basically Noah Crosby Henson's character hears what men are thinking and stuff like that, and like uses that to her advantage. But I don't know, I didn't love it very much. The other one I really didn't like was the Pet Sematary remake. You know, I love the original Pet Sematary. I know some people really don't, but I thought Fred Gwynne, you know, who played Herman Munster in The Munsters, I thought like he made that film when it comes to the original one. And the new one, I don't know, like John Lithgow, I thought, did a good job, but it was just like hard to compete with Fred Gwynne's performance, and nothing about this new one. I didn't like the changes that they made. I didn't think it was that interesting. Other one that I really didn't care for was the Hellboy remake, because you know, at first when I saw it, I thought it was okay. Then I watched back, you know, recently the original movies, you know, the Guillermo del Toro films. I was thinking, man, they were so much better. Every time I think of that Hellboy remake too, I think too of like that trailer with Hellboy going, whoa, 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 wait, wait, whoa, 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 wait, wait, like that ridiculous thing where he's going, whoa, wait, 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 whoa, whoa. That thing he did, that's all I can think of with that movie. The other one I did not care for was The Curse of La Llorona. That was kind of like forgettable to me. Like, I really did not care for that movie. It really wasn't very creepy. Other one that I really thought had a lot of problems. It was still watchable. Was Dark Phoenix. Like, I don't know. I'm really interested in seeing New Mutants. I feel like I know they're going to probably make some changes to that, but I feel like it's kind of cool, the aspect that it's going to be like a horror kind of superhero movie, and I like the vibe of it. Other one I really didn't care for at all was The Kitchen. Like, I really couldn't even make it through that movie. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I really dislike movies where people are doing, like, bad New York accents. I like really dislike that. You know, sometimes, you know, if it's a New York movie and it's real New Yorkers or people who can really do the accents, but when people are putting on those New York and Jersey-ish accents and they're really like over the top, which I felt like was going on in that movie, I just did not care for that movie. Other one I really was disappointed with was Terminator Dark Fate. Like, I was really hoping to really like that one, and I really didn't like what they did to Eddie Furlong's character. I felt like Eddie Furlong could have been in the movie. I don't know. I just really did not. I like the last one better, the one that was before that, Terminator Genisys, which people really disliked. I like that one better, honestly. And now we're going to talk about the best worst movies. Now, this term came from the movie Troll 2, being considered one of the best worst movies of all time. Basically, this means a movie that's so bad it's good, that it's like so bad it's such a fun movie to watch. And I always love best worst movies. Like, some of those movies are some of my all-time favorites. The first one I picked was Replicas, which stars Keanu Reeves, and it's basically his character is designing these robots. And the beginning of the movie, his whole family ends up dying, and it's like robots and cloning and all these kind of things. And he tries to bring back his family by cloning, and it's a really, really interesting movie. But like some of the scenes and the acting and the way things go are so over the top and peculiar. Like, it was really strange the way some of the things went. The other one that I was Serenity, which stars, you know, Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey, and that movie's like, you know, the reviews are really negative on that one, but I loved it. It was like so, but it was bad. It was bad, but it was so interesting because it was so weird, and I'm like, what does this all mean? What are they going for with this movie? Because it was so out there with the concepts of what was going on and the meaning to things. The other one that I you know, was a really bad but fun movie was a movie starring Dennis Quaid called The Intruder, and it was like his character ends up moving out of his house, and he really can't deal with the fact that he left, and he didn't really want to sell this house, and like the new owners that are there, his character keeps on coming back around and bugging them, and like lurking around and spying, and he's there, and he keeps on saying, "Oh no, I'm leaving tomorrow, I'm moving away tomorrow," and then he's back the next day again. He just keeps on coming back, and it just becomes like this stalkerous obsession stuff going on. Other one I picked was the Black Christmas remake, you know, which I feel like would have been better if they would have made it R-rated. I feel like, though, still, the way it goes and what the story was with the killer part and everything was really goofy, and it just had this sort of not too thought outness to what was going on. It really wasn't like a slasher movie as much as I was thinking it was going to be. The other one I picked, which I thought was a fun movie, but it was bad, you know, and was Gemini Man. But I thought it was a really fun movie about, like, you know, Will Smith's character is trying to be taken out by a younger version of himself. And there's all these crazy scenes in it, but it was very goofy. It really was. The other one, which I really loved, which I one of those ones that I can't wait to watch again, and I know it's bad, but it was really fun, was a movie called Countdown, which was somebody, you know, people put this app on their phone when it told you exactly the day, the date, and the time when you would die. And this one girl puts the app on her phone and says she's going to die in like a week. And she's realizing, though, that people are dying, and that, you know, they've had this app on their phone, so she has to try and figure out exactly what she's going to do to stop this. And the last one was Hobbs and Shaw, you know, which is, you know, the fantastic the Fast and Furious series. But the thing about it is that it went in this direction, which was like, how is this going in this way about, like, you know, the one character, you know, having superhuman powers, and it's like, what is going on with this? It's like, it went in this really weird way. It was still a really fun watch, but it was like the Fast and Furious movies are really starting to go in this super ridiculous direction, which is kind of like, where are they going to go next after doing this with them? But anyway, though, let me know what you guys thought of my picks for the best movies, worth watching movies, and worst movies, and best worst movies. But let me know in the comments below, though, what are some of your picks for best movies, worst movies, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, though, guys, thanks so much for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you guys later.